everyone. Welcome to another episode of Tuesdays with Roger. I'm Diana Guverts, and once again, we are back here with Roger Ettner. Hey, Roger, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. It's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday. Always a good day. I thought we could chat today about the recent Rootmetrics report that came out. Not really any big surprises there, but I thought it was worth chatting about. And then I want to jump to some stuff that's going on in the IoT space. But first, the report. So, of course, Verizon swept all the awards overall. And they were, of course, on top for coverage and reliability. That's no surprise. Sprint did make some gains. They made some gains in the metro and state level. And also AT&T was reportedly the carrier that deployed the most spectrum in the second half of the year. So I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts on the report? What kind of, how is this different from the Open Signal report we discussed earlier? And how are the differing results to be interpreted by the industry and consumers?
Yeah, so what Rootmetrics does is drive testing. So they have vehicles and people going out driving a large footprint in a given market and test it scientifically. It's usually the same phone. Or very equivalent, and done very scientifically. And it's measuring the network. Whereas the Open Signal are tests on people's devices, and then and not all devices are equal. So that some devices are faster and some devices are slower, which brings in a bias. It also looks a lot more where all the people are because that's where they're doing the tests. So you have much more of a user experience thing than a network experience dimension. I always like both have value, no doubt about it. I like the scientific testing better than the crowd testing, because crowd testing is also open to manipulation. I have looked at some of the crowd testing stuff, and when you look at it, there are sometimes mapping errors, there are sometimes clear manipulation going on where, I've looked at one of the providers who gave out the raw data, and you had like tests that were like 7,000 tests a week in a given geography, and then it jumped to 37,000 tests for a week, and then it came back down to 7,000, and I'm like, what happened here? Exact numbers. So I'm not dismissing, Ookla and Open Signal and these guys, but there's a lot more room for funny things can happen. But if you have a crappy network and you run a lot of bad tests, you still have a crappy network. So anyway, I think the most interesting thing is, Verizon is continuing to use this to demonstrate the network advantage, and T-Mobile we don't care about it, but the only thing we talk about for the next 3 days is this, the thing we don't care about. So I'm like, oh, you care really? So there's really this battle going on about what tests to use, and both sides are trying to discredit the other. I think the fact is that networks are becoming more and more similar. And that is what we've seen in whenever the technology reaches a maturation level, the difference between the networks are becoming smaller. And the good news is that it's a relatively comparable user experience, and consumers have choices. And then they have to make the choice what's good and bad for them, based on these local reports that you can get. Because a carrier that's great in one city is not necessarily great in the other one, and vice versa. So The great thing is people can make their decisions based on these reports. That's a good thing.
Okay. And I just briefly want to touch on one of the metrics that came out of the report. So Sprint made some gains both on the state level and in the metro level. And I just wanted to see, do you think that they'll continue to make gains given that they told us recently that they're going to be moving ahead with gigabit LTE trials in the spring and summer? I mean, if they roll that out, will that help them? I mean,
well, yes.
Significantly at least?
Well, they have the best spectrum situation. Unfortunately, they spend only very little on it. What was it? 2 and change billion dollars. Verizon spends $11.2 billion. I don't know how you can catch up by spending a fifth of Verizon, by spending half of T-Mobile, by spending maybe a third of AT&T. But yes, they have the best position. They have a good plan. They just need to fund it. So they're putting the right plans in mind. I can only implore them to spend more money on the network. And there's nothing that besides money that should stop them from being the fastest. They should have head above shoulder the fastest network in this country because they have so much more spectrum. You know, they have great plans. The technology department works on innovative solutions like HPUE and these things. But you know, they're not that much better than with 1/5. They can 1/5 the money. They can be faster than the others.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and turn away from the report now, because there's a lot going on in the IoT world. Tom Wheeler recently jumped on the board of a low-power wide area network company called Actility, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that. And so there's a lot of stuff going on in IoT. I mean, that's just one of the minor things that happened. It's interesting to see where he moved. But IoT is really kind of taking off. It's getting more of a focus. So I'm interested to see what you've been hearing on the IoT side. What stands out to you versus some of the announcements?
What was very interesting is that Qualcomm announced these low-end Snapdragon chips that have built-in capabilities for Android things, which is like Google's IoT solution, which should help a lot with consumer products. So we're seeing that profilation of more and more devices coming on. I think what it really needs to come to is not only devices, not only chipsets, but a end-to-end solution of like, here's the module, here's the connectivity, here's the cloud solution and the analytics with it. I'm waiting for that to have and grab a lot more attention as we not only have gone through Mobile World Congress, but really that is where I think it's going in terms of IoT. It's having to put together this whole thing rather than have really point solutions over and over again.
Do you think a carrier maybe like AT&T is close to something like that? I mean, they've been working really hard. They have those little IoT developer kits. They can offer that connectivity. I mean, how much more work would they need to put in to do something like that? Is that even in their alley? I mean, what are your thoughts there?
It's in their alley, and but they don't want to develop everything themselves. I think AT&T can certainly do these things. I'm also looking at companies like, you know, Sierra Wireless, who have been around forever and who is dominant in modules, to really do a good job in that. And not everybody wants to work with a given carrier, but they want to be carrier agnostic. And because we all know the carrier is doing that for a reason, for you to be on that network. And that network may or may not be always the best one. Or you want to have a choice and take it internationally, and then maybe working with an integrated provider that's not a carrier is much more useful.
I'm not sure how much you looked into this yourself, but I mean, what do you make of an announcement like the one Nokia came out with, where they kind of came up with this mesh network that works around the globe? It's a global solution for the IoT, and it kind of weaves, Wi-Fi and cellular and satellite together to get that whole global IoT connectivity going.
Well, that's the right concept, I think. And when you look exactly at the Nokia thing, it's the concept. I don't think they have been able to pull it all together yet. So that I look at the Nokia announcement much more as a statement of intent than a product availability statement. But the vision is certainly right, and but it's not unique. Others, Sierra, Telit, have similar visions. They don't have the strong connectivity with the backbone of and the core network of the operator, but that's not always necessary. So this type of a vision is certainly where it's going.
And where would that vision, take the IoT? Would that be the tipping point where everybody just goes bonanza? There's already pretty significant growth in the IoT, but what will it take to really push everybody that way? Will it be that end-to-end concept, or is the connectivity still a problem?
I don't think the connectivity is necessarily the problem, because you can marry the right connectivity with the solution. And operators' networks have been very good, and the coverage has expanded dramatically. So I'm very hesitant and doubtful about IoT solutions that require to build their own network, because why not use the network that's already there? And most IoT solutions are so low throughput, they barely put a load on the network. And the custom build networks usually are only low throughput either. So you're duplicating a lot of things. Yes, I think it's the comprehensive end-to-end solution that really will make a difference. And we're seeing how this moves wave after wave after wave. We had the e-reader wave, and now all the e-readers have connectivity, either Wi-Fi or wide area. We have tablets. All of this is moving out. All the cars, give it a few years, all the cars will have connectivity. So that's the next wave. I see medical devices next. Medical devices will be huge. Show me a medical device that doesn't benefit from being connected. Pill bottles, all of that. Digital cities, integrating all of that. It will be interesting, and I think in a lot of places, Europe will be a lot leading in that, simply because the municipalities and the states and the countries are playing a much stronger role when it comes to cities and urban and environmental standards, whereas in the US it's much more laissez-faire. And when you make dollars and cents calculations, businesses get that and do it. Consumers, much less. They're much more driven by the wow factor than dollars and cents. Otherwise, everybody would have solar panels on their roof. And I think IoT, it's coming. it's getting there, and you see all the investment. It's and the investment from very smart people. So
Okay. Last question. I mean, we've seen moves from Verizon to try to push its way into the IoT space, both through acquisitions and trying to come up with its own solutions. And T-Mobile, to an extent, has tried to jump on the IoT bandwagon as well. I mean, which carrier out of the tier one do you think is best positioned to kind of capitalize on the IoT push, and which do you see doing so?
well, right now it's the one you didn't mention, AT&T. And AT&T is doing this with a partnership approach of partnering with a lot of different countries companies, because they know they can't do it all alone. Verizon is following its normal instinctual behavior of owning. If it works out, it's really great. If it doesn't work out, you spend a lot of resources and money, and you have to sell it again. And when we look at for all the investment, for example, that Verizon has made in automotive, they have relatively little to show. Or when you look at the investment they made in data centers, it's back for sale because it didn't pan out. But when it works out, it's working out very, very well, and they have lower cost. One of the key examples, for example, Verizon is the only one that has their own internal billing system. Gives them a cost advantage, but it's on the line. T-Mobile is largely benefiting from right now from Verizon, AT&T turning off their 2G network, and so they will get some GSM refugees. But I think for T-Mobile, it's still a secondary priority. They do so well in consumer that they don't have to worry about, or they don't have to focus on IoT. They're doing it. It's a valiant effort, but they're not betting the farm on it. It's consumer, it's postpaid, it's phones, and they're doing extremely well there.
Okay. Well, we will continue to keep our eye on that as always. Roger, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It's always a pleasure to hear your insights, and it's a great thing to learn from you too. So thank you for joining us, and we will be back next week with another episode of Tuesdays with Roger.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.